And then all of a sudden, I had this thought that said, oh yeah, she's gonna be fine, but you're gonna be left behind. I said, huh? Sorry, excuse me, please come. What? What? Okay, let's just sit down. Let's just sit down and unpack that. Hi guys, today I want to talk about the disaster pie that is baked when comparison exists alongside a victim mentality. Now there's hope to get unstuck, so today I want to share some tips about how I've learned to tackle this. Comparison and the victim mentality are huge topics in and of themselves. They deserve their own episodes, if not series. So today I'm not going to be able to dive into them individually, but what I do want to talk about is when they exist alongside each other and they're operating together. I'm sure you've heard it said that comparison is the thief of joy. Since the inception of social media, we've had so much opportunity to peer into each other's lives like never before. I'm sure you've also heard it said that it's unwise to compare the highlight reels of somebody else's life with the 360 of yours. But if we're being honest, comparison has existed way before social media. I remember being back in primary school, and whether it was comparing backpacks or pencil cases, or even lunches, comparison was already at play. Fast forward to secondary school, and there was a lot around what people looked like, academics as well, what grades people were achieving, but also what we were able to do outside of the classroom, so the extracurricular activities and achievements. Fast forward again to adulthood, and you're comparing everything from lifestyles to relationships to finances to jobs. It goes on and on and on. Comparison is rife. It is a beast in and of itself. So then imagine the weight that is added when that is tied with a victim mentality. Now let's talk about the victim mentality. And what I mean by this is a learned helplessness. At some point, you have decided that in a particular area of life, you are unable to affect change. Now, this could have been birthed out of a genuine situation where this was the case. Maybe you were a child in a less than ideal situation, and you were genuinely powerless to bring about the change that you wanted to see. But maybe since then, you've applied that same mentality to situations where that isn't the case. When we couple that with comparison, the narrative that you are believing is that this other person has something that you want and you are unable to get it. That is stressful, to say the least. Now, imagine that is then aggravated by the fact that this thing that you're thinking about is an idol for you. And what I mean by that is that you have deemed this thing to have the power to give you ultimate satisfaction, safety, or significance. That, coupled with comparison and a victim mentality, honestly is intense. I can imagine feelings of sadness, of hopelessness, even self-rejection. Sis, you can't live like this. We have to find ways to tackle this. Now, when you have all three combined, the narrative that you're believing is that this thing brings me ultimate satisfaction, significance, or safety. That person over there has it, and I can't do anything about it. I can't do anything to get it for myself. Can you see why this is so important for us to work on and to break down? Because you cannot walk around living life with this on your shoulders. So let's get into how to tackle this. So my first tip is identify, acknowledge, and repent. Identify is exactly what it sounds like. What would you Google if you wanted to find out more about this thing that affects you? What would you call it? Then acknowledging is about looking for the why. So you might already know that envy and jealousy are sins according to the Bible, but you still have the space to investigate what is going on in your thoughts and your feelings in order to actually combat the sin. What you don't want to do is just gloss over it with because the Bible said so. And then The third part of that first tip is to repent. As we know, it is a sin to be envious and to be jealous. And this is actively against God's design and plan for us to thrive and flourish as humans. It is offensive to Him for us to be envious and to be jealous. And so, who we have done the most wrong against is God. And we need to acknowledge that. We need to go to Him and repent. And when I say repent, repenting basically means committing to going in the other direction. We can be sorry and feel sorry, but that doesn't necessarily change our actions. And so it's a commitment by the grace of God to go in the other direction. And so these next tips are going to be the practical steps that help us to do that. Next on my list is tackle them separately. I'm so proud of you, sis. You've now decided to actually deal with this head on, which is amazing. But what you don't want to do is just start pulling from every angle, because we all know it doesn't work for Christmas lights and it's not going to work here either. You want to be systematic. You want to separate comparison from the victim mentality, from idolatry, if that exists as well, and deal with them as three separate issues. You are going to be more effective and fruitful trying to pull them apart and investigating them separately. Then we have remove judgment. What is not helpful in this already highly emotional situation is to add feelings of feeling bad about feeling bad. So you already are comparing and you're down in the dumps. You feel like a victim, you're down in the dumps. And now you want to add feeling bad about being down in the dumps? Like, no, sis, that is not going to be helpful. What is going to be helpful is to be able to observe without judgment. So before you go concluding anything about what you find out in your thought process and your analysis, which I'll come to next, let's just make sure that we are being neutral as humanly possible while we are picking it all apart. This final tip has a few different parts to it, but it is to analyze. And this is the meat of the work. So this is where you're going to read books about these topics that you've identified. You're going to listen to podcasts. You're going to go to therapy. You're going to sit and stop and think. So I've listed all the big parts of that, but let's go back to stopping and thinking for a second. So what I mean by that is literally sitting somewhere quietly with no music, maybe a journal, and just thinking about the situation or the build up to the negative emotions around comparison or a victim mentality. So you might have had the thought during the day, while at work, in a meeting, on your commute back home. There wasn't necessarily enough time to kind of grab hold of the thought and analyze it. That's fine. When you get home, you've made your dinner, you've, chatted to your friends on WhatsApp, you've watched a couple of episodes of whatever. Great. But can we just make some time to go back to that thought from lunchtime and pick it apart? I'll give you an example of when I did this and just show you, I guess, how to go into the layers a little bit. So I remember a couple of months ago, I was doing a no media week, which I'm going to make a video about. And yes, you heard me say no media, not no social media, no media, full stop. But anyway, I was doing that. And that's probably why I was able to catch this thought quite readily as well. I had this thought that came up and I was thinking about a friend quite fondly initially. And then all of a sudden I had this thought that said, oh yeah, she's going to be fine, but you're going to be left behind. I said, huh? Sorry, excuse me, please come. What? What? Okay, let's just sit down. Let's just sit down and unpack that. So I did. And a lot happened in that moment. Where did I start? I said, okay, and remember, no judgment. So I'm not sitting there. Obviously, I'm, having I'm here now having a conversation with a thought, but very neutral, very neutral. It's like when when the child stole the thing, the candy, whatever it is, and you're wanting to interrogate them, but not letting them know that you know that they took it, that kind of vibe. So it was very like, okay, cool. Tell me more about that. Why are we thinking that? What's happening? And so the first question I asked myself was, that's interesting. Is there anyone else you feel that way about? And I thought about it for a second and I said, yeah, actually, there'd be a couple of people that I'd say, I have this belief that they're going to be fine, just in terms of obviously things that they plan to do and where their life is going. And I said, okay, great. And what do you think is different about them? Why do you think they're going to be fine and you're not? And I thought about it for a second. And what came up was that they have what it takes. And then I said, okay, cool. And what do you mean by have what it takes? And so I analyzed that. And what I ended up discovering was that I was thinking about them as people who were, for the most part, hardworking, conscientious, and also very able to move past their emotions and get things done. And a couple of other things came up. But yeah, there were specific things that I could identify as what it takes. And that was really helpful. So now I could go in two different directions because the question was, okay, so why do I think I don't have what it takes? And what I could have identified were things that were absolutely lies. So say, for example, I'm very confident that I'm also super hardworking and super, get things done and consistent irrespective of how I'm feeling and all those things, then I can deal with those thoughts as specifically as lies. But in this situation, I think I went more in the direction of challenge. So there was a bit of self-reflection there, just saying like, okay, and if you don't think that is you and you qualify, you tick off all those things, what do we want to do about it? And can I just say, everybody who struggles with a victim mentality, you need to just write that sentence down, write it in your journal, stick it on a post-it somewhere, plaster it on your phone background screen, whatever it is. That question, what do you want to do about it, is so powerful because it really does assume that you have agency. There is actually something that you can do about this. So I sat down and I said, what do I want to do about this? And wrote a couple of things down. And it was just a really helpful time and a really helpful exercise to do. So when I say stop and sit and think and analyze, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. No judgment, just drilling to the next layer and the next layer and the next layer until you get to the root of the issue. And then you actually have tangible things to go away with as opposed to just feelings that leave you all over the place. So I also mentioned podcasts and books, and by that I just mean resources produced and written by experts. So for example, when I think about idolatry, the first person that comes to mind is the late Tim Keller. He talked about and wrote about idolatry in a way that I'd never heard about it spoken about before, which was just so helpful and has been over the years to kind of, tackle that particular area of life. I remember also listening to a podcast about the victim mentality. And that was actually the first time I had identified that what was happening internally was me having the victim mentality. And I remember listening to this podcast where this lady was just defining essentially what it is and what it could have been caused by. And I remember her also analyzing and just saying that sometimes people who start out with that actually get addicted to being a victim. I said, what? My mind was blown. What does she mean by that? And she basically went on to say, like, sometimes the pity, I guess, so the reward that they get from other people, feeling sorry for them and, that kind of thing, they actually start to enjoy it. And so there are benefits to having the victim mentality. I said, those are not the kind of benefits that I'm looking for. What the heck? So yeah, so there was a podcast. I'll link it down below because it was, just really, really good to help kind of, give a full picture of what that whole issue was about and how it operates as well. But I've gone on to read so many books and listen to so many podcasts and that kind of thing around these topics. So educate yourself, please. Use the resources that are readily available to us now to find out more and to get the help that you need. Speaking about the help that you need, I am so pro therapy. It's unbelievable. I have done therapy at different stages for different reasons, but I definitely always find that it helps to unpack the layers that I can't unlock. So I'm quite introspective. Like I mentioned, I'll do the sit down and think and break it down all the way down. But sometimes I found that I'm just stuck. I know that I haven't quite gotten to the root of something, but I don't know where to go next. And that's when I email my therapist and I'm like, let's book in 6 sessions or whatever, because I just know that I need the help of an expert to get beyond this point that I'm at. So as much as it is accessible to you, of course, we can, talk to friends and trusted peers and, loved ones, pastors, all that good stuff. But there's just something, about therapy and just having that person who can consistently work through something with you in a quite devoted way, if that makes sense. You're there in those 40 to 50 minutes for that specific reason, for them to listen and to hear things and to help you unpack. It's a game changer. So yes, resources, therapy, do the work to also sit and analyze for yourself. And of course, I've got a final tip. Call this the bonus track, if you like. It is to pray. I don't know if you've heard about that book called Everything is Figure Outable. Yeah. So this version is Everything is Pray Aboutable. Sis, this is an issue of freedom. And Jesus is the captain of freedom. And what I mean by that is God is invested in you living a life where you are not carrying this weight around with you. It is heavy and it is not yours to carry, as in God doesn't want this for you. And so, of course, if you appeal to him and ask him for help, whether it's to show you the root of things, whether it's to help you and give you wisdom for practical ways in which you can tackle this and heal and move forward, whether it's to intervene supernaturally and heal you, there are so many ways in which God is a help to us. So pray, 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 pray. Ladies, I'm so excited about the journey you are on or about to embark on, because I have seen the difference that all of these things have made to my journey. I've become more practical. I've become quicker to identify things and get to the root. I've been quicker to repent. I've been quicker to fight for right thinking in my mind and peace in my heart. And so I'm just really hoping that these tips have been helpful, and I will absolutely be praying for you as I pray for myself. And I just want to remind you that healing is an ongoing work. It's an ongoing journey. The aim is not perfection. The aim is health. Let's make this a conversation, because I know there's so many of us walking this journey, trying to tackle some of these things. So many of us that there's absolutely no need for us to be tackling them alone. Share some tips in the comments. What has been helpful for you? Where are you at on your journey? How are you feeling? Because I know for me, there have been so many times where I've just been like, please, I didn't kill anyone. It's actually okay. I will stop here. This is as much freedom as I'm willing to fight for, please. And then it's like, no, actually, I want to be free of this. I want to live a life flourishing without this weight on my shoulders. I want to be able to enjoy other people without constantly battling and warring with negative feelings. Let's actually come at this with energy, ladies. So yeah, please share your own tips in the comments. Share any prayer points you have. How you doing? You know? That's me for today, but thank you so much for watching. Take care, sis, and see you in the comments.